Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You've just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G, and tonight we're broadcasting to you on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, KPNL, and Odyssey Radio. Remember, you can access our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is Spaced Out Radio, where the options are endless. Stay up to date with the SOR Newswire. Get some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, rock out to some Bumblefoot and so much more. Happy Sunday. We are at the end of the weekend. We do have an awesome show for you tonight. We actually have Victor Vigani, who will be joining us in a little bit here. It's going to be an awesome show. It's definitely going to be an awesome show. Like I said, we're wrapping this weekend up, getting ready to hop back into this work week. Going into the holiday season for a lot of people. So, I hope it's going to be a great time of the year. I hope everybody enjoys themselves. Like I said, next week, the way that it looks next weekend, we'll be dipping into the Spaced Out Radio archives and picking out a few good ones for you to take you right into that holiday. And then we'll be back live on that Tuesday. So the Tuesday right after the holiday with Dave Scott, going from Tuesday through Friday. And then we'll be picking up on December 30th, rather, with After Hours, and then December 31st, which is going to be an important one right here on After Hours. Well, we're going to go ahead and do a New Year's Eve show. So we are going to do a New Year's Eve show right here on After Hours. We're going to bring in the new year. We're going to cross all time zones, starting with the East Coast. So on that night, we'll probably go a little later than normal. We start the show here normally at 8 p.m. Pacific time. But on that day, we'll probably start right around 8:45. And that way we can bring in the new year across all time zones here in the United States. So it should be fun. Putting together a great panel for that show. It should be pretty awesome. So if you're not out on the town, having a ball somewhere, and you're considering staying home and staying safe, I would definitely consider tuning in to a fantastic show. Just as tonight will be a fantastic show. So let's go ahead and jump in the chat and see who is here. Who jumped in the chat first? This looks like a new lineup here. I'm not used to this one, guys. Hold on. Looks like we got to Mothman with the gold. We got Kira I Am with the silver, and JSCO77 with the bronze. Totally new lineup. Totally new lineup. Congratulations to you all. To Mothman, Sweet Robbie G, Here I Am, Hello Rob, and Spaced Out Radio, and all you amazing space travelers. Yes, definitely. And then JSCO with glasses, purple, yellow, diamond emojis. And we got Race Fan stepping in the building. Thank you very much, Race Fan, for joining us tonight. We have Deb from Sacramento. Deb from Sac, thank you so much for coming on in. We do appreciate you. Let's see. We got Nicola Perry Jr., Season's Greetings, Space Travelers, and the host with the most, Mr. Rob G. Thank you very much, Nicola. Do appreciate that. I just try to do what I can, and I'm just bringing the authentic me to the after hours. So I do appreciate you. We have Carl Bittner stepping in the building. Hiya, Rob, and all of you spaced out after hours peeps. Okay, to make sure I got to get that one right. We also have Marie Palmer in the building saying, what kind of emoji is that? Can't really tell, but then an eye and then an eye and a diamond. And then guess what? You tell us, Marie. Thank you for coming in. You tell us. We do have Kathy Evans coming in saying hi. Hello, Kathy Evans. We have Missouri Man saying evening all. Evening, Missouri Man. We have I Like Turtles. See, we got Kathy Evans, Missouri Man, and I Like Turtles. That seems to be 3 in a row. That seem to be new names. If you guys are new, I definitely want to welcome you to Spaced Out Radio and After Hours. And it is just so great to have you guys here with us. So Missouri Man says, evening all. I Like Turtles says, sweet, sweet Robbie G. Thank you very much for coming on in. We got Paranormal Pixie Laura. Laura, thanks for coming. I haven't seen you in a minute. Hope everything is well with you. Let's see. We have Stargazer 46 and 2. Big lizard in my backyard. Ooh, I don't know how I do with lizards. I don't know. Depends. It depends. Iguanas look gross, but maybe just a regular lizard potentially. We got Susan Alloway in the building saying hello, everybody. Hello, Susan. We have another new name, appears to be new name. FaZe Will. Everybody welcome FaZe Will to the show. Thank you, FaZe Will, for coming on in with your alien head emoji. We do appreciate you coming on in. We have Jimmy Gonzalez. Jimmy, thanks for coming on in tonight. We got Chris Topaz. Another new name potentially. If so, welcome Chris Topaz to the show. Thank you for coming on in, Chris. We appreciate you. We have Facebook user, Hey Rob G. Thank you, Facebook user, for coming on in. We have Zane Michael. Loving it. I'm loving this. I'm just loving it. Everybody, welcome Zane Michael to Spaced Out Radio After Hours. Looks like you're joining us from Twitter tonight. Maybe it looks like possibly. Yep. So thank Zane Michael for coming on in and joining us here from Twitter or from X, if whatever you want to call it. We have Mary R with the wavy hand emoji. Thank you for coming on in, Mary. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up because Stargazer. This is what I'm talking about. This is a statement that you would likely hear me make. We need to all band together and have a march on the nation's capital for disclosure. I'd make a road trip for that. Very important point, Stargazer. And I think a lot more of us, including myself, and I have plans to get some things going. I'm already talked about, but for this especially. It's going to take us getting up off of our couches if we have the ability to do so, and getting out there and in doing exactly what you're talking about here. So glad you said it. It's definitely I say the same thing often and totally believe in that statement. So thank you for that. We got Welshammer coming on in with the beer emojis, wine emojis, champagne emojis, guitar, and saying, "Hey all, we're rocking and rolling tonight." Thank you for coming on in. We have Channel Warhorse. Hi, Kurt M. Hiya, y'all. Thank you for coming in, Channel Warhorse. We have Poncho Zort. Dang, from Jessica, the Cryptid Huntress, to this guy. What a delight. Thank you so much for coming in. And thank you, Cryptid Huntress, for recommending that Poncho Zort come on over to the after hours and check us out, because we will be having a great time tonight like we always do. And let's see. Oh, we have Miss Catherine Jones. Hey, Rob G. How you doing, Catherine? Totally glad you can join us tonight. Last day of the weekend. We got Dead Fish Cheese Spread saying, ho, ho, ho. Okay, getting into the spirit, getting into the holiday spirit. I like that. I was listening to some good holiday tunes earlier today. Just kind of was in the mood. Just kind of the mood hit me and put up a good little playlist, and yeah, kind of got into it. Let's see. Who else do we have? We do have Ange. Ange has stepped in the building saying, "Hey, everyone, again, driving, so I won't be in chat. When you drive safe, Ange, you drive safe and enjoy the show." Let's see. We have Presidential Zaddy. Salute, Rob G. Salute right back to you. F you, Rob G. F you right back, Presidential Zaddy. Thanks for joining us, man. I hope you have a great holiday. Let's see. I think we're almost there. Okay, we do have a little Cam 5-1 sighting. Hope Ravens lose. I don't really have a dog in that fight, little Cam 5-1. I know my team lost today. Dallas Cowboys. Sad, sad, sad. It was ugly. And yeah, not feeling good about that. Okay, Marie Palmer. We have River Dog Pitbull. Seems like a new name to me. Welcome, River Dog Pitbull. Saying Rob G. Right back at you there. We have, let's see, Paramar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's have an awesome after show too. Definitely posted it up. So if you haven't already set the schedule, follow us from here to over there. And I want to hear about your experiences. So all experiences, follow us after the show and talk about your experience with us tonight. We do have my guy, Magneticus Attractus, the dude who's building the time machine currently, real life time machine. This guy's going to build it. And no, it's not just a watch, Magneticus. So don't even go there. We have Laura Lobbs. Hello, Rob and SOR family. Thank you for coming, Laura. We have Jay Burke. Hello, Rob at Spaced Out Radio. Let's see. Okay. Shelly Montgomery. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Rob. Smiley emoji, wavy hand. Thank you for coming. We have Chris Dean saying, "Hello, G is Robbie G." Hello, Christine. Thank you for coming on in. We do have Sapphire Elf stepping in the building saying, "Hey, hey, hey, huggers in fives all." Thank you for coming, Sapphire Elf. Thank you for joining us. And let's see. All right, from Twitter, from X, we got Twisted Chris. Looks like potentially another new viewer, and if so, definitely want to thank you for joining us at Spaced Out Radio After Hours. Thank you so much. We do this every day, just so you know, 7 days a week, 365, except for holidays. And we'd love to have you back here. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's see. Faze Will, thank you for coming on in, Faze Will. We do appreciate you. We have Lori Rosenfeld. Hello from Toronto. Thanks for having Victor on. Yeah, no problem at all. We definitely are glad to have Victor on. He's a great mind, great researcher, and we're going to love to talk to him tonight. And let's see. All right. Chris Topaz, thank you for coming on in, Chris. Derek Galloway, thanks for stepping on in. We got a good list here. Penny Van, thank you for coming in, Penny Van. Ted Aussie, welcome, Ted Aussie, to the show. Thank you for coming on in, Ted Aussie. We do appreciate you coming on in. Joe Monk, I don't own a couch. All right, Joe Monk. Now I know what we need to get you for this holiday here. Everybody, Joe Monk needs a couch. Let's put it on the list. Let's see. Miss Catherine Jones is ready to march. I like that. I like it. We need to activate ourselves. Humanity. It's not, we can watch all the shows we want to watch. We can talk the talk, but we have to walk the walk at some point. That's what a lot of those, a lot of the people that we do watch, like the Corbells and all those guys, you hear them say that occasionally. And it almost seems kind of snide the way that they put it. But they're like, you could do something too. You guys could get something together. And that's kind of what they're saying. Like, there are actions that we can do on, as humanity from our humble homes and in our humble living situations. And for something as important as this is to humanity, it should definitely be worth it. And if we want to try to drive it home, if we want to try to get disclosure across that line, it may take something like this. So I'm loving the ideas here. Let's see. All right, we have Robert Anthony. I think you're new. If you are, thanks for coming on in. Happy holidays to you too. Let's see. Okay. Almost down. Okay, Guy Calgary. Thank you for joining us, Guy Calgary. Thank you for coming on in. Keyshawn Petgrove, thank you for coming. Greetings, humans. Dragonfly, thank you for coming on in. Evening, Rob and chat family. We appreciate you. And I definitely want to point out these supers, which we will be doing right after this. Okay. I can't recall if I said Jay Burke, but I want to say Jay Burke again if I didn't. So, hello, Jay Burke. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. Like this. We got picks in the building. Howdy, folks. You're doing a great job, Rob G. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And I'm not familiar with your name. So if you are new picks, I do thank you for coming on and joining us here at the After Hours. We totally appreciate you. And we will not let you down. We will not let you down. UFO Contact, thank you for coming. Victor is among the best and most dedicated disclosure advocates. Thanks for the interview. No, we're going to thank him for, gracing us tonight. Excuse me. It's going to be a pleasure. For someone that utilizes their time to, put in the time to research and try to move the needle. It's just all respect. So I'm just going to be glad to have him in, and we will be talking to him momentarily. Let's see. Oh gosh. Okay, looks like we're all caught up. These guys are talking about Niners in the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear that at all. Let's refrain from the Niners talk. Mods, can you make sure wrenches that you're on all these Niner fans, please? All right. So, excuse me. All right. So we're gonna get down to business here. Like I said, holiday season, things are feeling good. I just laid out the game plan for Spaced Out Radio, what we're looking at. Um, so once again, next weekend will be the uh digging into the archives, but we'll have it in set up in a nice presentation, and the live chat will be open. So definitely come and join the live chat. It will be open for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Live chat will be open, and we'll have some of the most epic, hand-picked episodes from the archives that will be playing over those days. And if you're with family, obviously over that weekend, then it's a great time to get those family members who just don't get it. I know I have a few in my family. Excuse me, a few in my family that they just haven't come on board with the realization that these things are here. So it'd be a great time to get those family members to have a seat and kind of check out some of the best episodes that have ever aired here from Spaced Out Radio, kind of bring them up to speed. So I think it'll be a great family weekend. And like I said, once again, the New Year's show will be coming the following weekend. We'll be putting together a great panel. If there's anybody in particular you want to see on that panel, let me know. And then if I can make it happen, then we'll do that. So you already know how to reach me, Facebook or Facebook Messenger. So just put it in the after hours chat, and we will definitely work on that. So what we're going to do is go ahead and jump right on into the show. And we have some new viewers here, and hopefully, you guys come back again to see our future guests. But tonight we'll be talking to Victor Viggiani. So let me go ahead and bring him on in, and we'll go ahead and get this thing started. All right, all right. Hello, Victor. Hi, how are you this evening?
Just fine, Rob. And how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's a honor to have you here tonight. I've looked into some of your work, and how dedicated you are to your research, and uncovering the truth in a lot of areas on disclosure. I know you're from Canada, and you actually, we're going to talk about that today. But when I do a first interview with anyone, I know we can always jump right into business, but I like to kind of look into you as Victor, and kind of how you ended up where you're at on this path of research and pushing for disclosure, like kind of what led you to this point, and then we can jump into the other things late afterwards.
Well, it's a 40-year-old story, Rob. I got involved in this probably around 1975 when I read a book by Jacques Vallée. I was at a Coles bookstore up here in Northern Ontario, and I just picked up a book and started to browse through it like I usually do. And I had never really taken any real big interest in the UFO phenomenon before. Um, at all, really. But as I read through the book, I said, "Yeah, this fellow Jacques Vallée's onto something pretty strange, pretty bizarre." So I bought the book, and I was up at the cottage at the time, so I had a lot of time in my hands. I was a school teacher at the time, and so we had 2 months off. So I brought the book back to the cottage, and I read it. I read it once, and I read it again, and then Rob, I read it again. I read the book 3 times before I actually could absorb everything that this man was talking about.
Right.
And from that point on, I became very fixated on this for a number of different reasons. And those reasons have evolved over the years. The reason that I initially got into it is much, much different than how I feel about the whole phenomenon at this point. It's evolved over 40 years. As most things of a worthwhile nature, they do evolve. And I've reached a point in my understanding of what's going on right now, Rob, that if I could summarize it with respect to the ET issue and the UAP issue, however you want to define those things, um, I've come to the conclusion, Rob, that we are on the next step. We are on the threshold of the next step of our evolution as a species. And that's a far stretch away from UFOs and all of that. But once we get into the conversation about all of that and how I've arrived at that particular um, notion, it's been a real journey to get there. It's been a 40-year journey, and I've spoken to a lot of people. I've interacted with all kinds of researchers. I was the one who brought the Honorable Paul Hellyer forward, former
Mhm.
Minister of Defense here in Canada, um, into the whole fold of this. I spoke to him on the telephone once or twice after a radio program that I was on. And I asked him, I said, you've been reading a book called The Day After Roswell by Philip J. Corso. He said, yes. I said, well, we're planning a symposium. This is back in 2005 in September, and it's a disclosure symposium at Convocation Hall at the University of Toronto. You're reading this book, and you would be an excellent choice for our keynote speaker. I said, Mr. Hellyer, would you choose to do that? And he said, oh no, I could never do that. No, no. So I said, well, I'll give you some time to think about it, and I'll call you back in 2 weeks. He said, that's fine. That's good. Give me a call back. So I waited 2 weeks, and I called him back. I said, did you finish reading the book? He said, yes. I said, how do you feel about that? And he said, well, I'd like to talk to you more about this. I said, would you want to be the keynote speaker? And he said, yes, I will. And at that point, that's when things really took off for me in 2005 and for everybody here in Canada, where Paul Hellyer became a global institution and a global advocate for the UFO disclosure phenomenon. So that's one of the things that I really feel was part of my evolution as a researcher and as an activist. So I think possibly what I can say is initially I was someone who was interested, then I became someone who was a bit of a researcher, and then after a while I became an activist, someone who was compelled to force this thing disclosure onto the international and national stage. It is something that everyone has to know about. They must know about it. And that's where I've focused all of my efforts over the past 45 years.
Wow, that is awesome. And excuse me, you kind of poked at something there that I know you'll get to later on how important this is to humanity, and this is even going past the fact of what these things are and where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
Just this moment in time that is that one of those historical forks in the road where we have a chance to literally redirect our path in a meaningful way. So it's going to be great to hear you get into that. Um, looking at what's going on right now, and I know you're big on being a researcher. I know you're big on the history of ufology and kind of the things that should matter and do matter to a lot of us, but really aren't being paid attention to or held with high regard by uh, for instance, the Congress, the media, NASA, for which is crazy to think about because they go
Mm-hmm.
back to the beginning of this. Yeah, if you could speak on that, because I believe in the history, in knowing the history. I have a show where on my other channel where each episode I do a segment called Once Upon a Time in Ufology, and it actually takes you back to something historical. And I think that's important for the new eyes that come in to know the history of this whole situation. So if you wouldn't mind going into why that's important for you.
As far as the history is concerned, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different ways to approach this whole issue. An historical approach is always a good foundation to have. And I think that foundation has been set in stone over the past 75 years because of the UFO cover up. And that UFO cover up, which began as far back as 1947, was the platform upon which just about everything that's happening now is occurring. It's the reason that whole UFO cover up, so people call it a truth embargo, was the platform of the United States government beginning this whole narrative, this whole kind of discussion about this, because when things happened in Roswell in 1947, and I'm sure most of your listeners are very familiar with all of that, so I'm not going to recount it. The really odd part about all that, Rob, was when 1947 occurred, and by the way, I should say that was not the first event of some sort of UFO encounter in the United States and even on the planet. However, it was a bookmark. There's no doubt about it. And when it did happen in 1947, the really ironic thing about this, and even 75 years later, it still is ironic that when this thing did crash at near Roswell, near Socorro, and also on the ranch, on the Brazil Ranch, uh, the army came in and looked at things and found out that something had landed. They took things back, and the next day in the paper, they said a saucer was found, and the United States government admitted to the fact that a saucer had actually crashed. And my goodness, that's great, fantastic information. But the next day, they recoiled, they recanted, they began the big lie. They called it the crash of a weather balloon, and that's the pivotal point at which history started to take a completely, I think, a 90-degree turn in the direction of lies, mendacity, and the UFO cover-up began. So that history and all the things that we believe right now are based on the lies that the United States government and the forced media lies that happened back then, all towards the early part of the 1950s and onwards from that. This whole scenario, the whole history, is based on the fact that the United States government lied not only to their own people, they lied to their government, they lied to the military, they lied to just about everyone about this. And that pursuit of the lie has engaged a lot of people, hundreds and hundreds of researchers, thousands of books have been written about all of the lies that have been told to the people about that whole incident that began. And then after that, a whole barrage of UFO sightings, the wave of 1952, it began to go sideways for everybody. And as soon as people realized that something really, really significant was going on, the United States government compounded the lies by instituting a cover-up called Project Blue Book. And you probably have heard about that, and your listeners have. And that was the biggest part of the cover-up. And it was really important to understand why they did it. What they did do was, in fact, admit to themselves that this issue was bigger than them. This issue was much, much bigger because they didn't understand what was going on. They had no idea what they had found. They'd found crashed bodies, crashed craft, parts of craft, all kinds of technology, and they didn't know what the hell to do with any of this stuff. So because they didn't know anything about it, they just foisted lies on the American public. And we all know what the results of that particular series of lies was. So that historical platform has led us to this point right now where we are beginning to become a little bit more, I guess, aware is probably a better way of putting it, of not only why the lies were told, but where the lies have led us right now. And we're at a point right now that is extremely significant, extremely prominent in the development of this whole issue. And we can get into that right now. And as far as Canada is concerned, there's been documentation that the Canadian government fed along to the same way, the same mode of reasoning that the United States government did by continuing to lie to the Canadian people. So that infectious lie, a very infectious lie, not only spread throughout the United States, it spread to Canada and the UK, France, and globally. And it developed an idea or a worldview that said to everybody that we are alone in the cosmos. There's no such thing as UFOs. They're all a myth. There's really nothing to worry about. So just go on having your coffee, read your newspaper, send your kids to school, and go about your business, and just forget about this stuff called UFOs because it's just a myth. And that's a very powerful worldview to foist upon a generation of people. And by and large, Rob, the United States public and the public throughout the international community bought that series of lies, and we've been living those lies until recently, when all of this stuff has burst forward, and we can get into that if you want a little bit later.
Yes, you said a mouthful, and it's all truth and facts. Oh my gosh, it when and I love how you put it. I love the way you put it because it really paints the picture of how detrimental this lie has become in influencing an entire generation. And with the whole "there's nothing to see here," when we had a whole, it's really reported almost pretty much since the beginning, Betty Barney Hill going all the way back to then, actual abduction cases. So okay, you initially say that there's a crash disk, then you turn around and begin what I call the original cover up the very next day. And now you leave your people susceptible to things like ET abductions and experimentation, all while pushing this line. So I think that's a horrible thing. And as far as the media goes, right? So the media, you would think, would be their job is to research and to go back and dig up facts and report on the facts. So, what is your viewpoint on why the media would overlook the history that's obviously there and act oblivious to what it is that we're dealing with? And this goes back. I mean, I think George Knapp was probably one of the first, journalists to kind of really do his job and kind of research the history and what was going on. What do you think is going on there? What controls that?
Well, initially, what happened was a replication of what happened in Roswell with the Roswell News. I forget the name of the newspaper at the time.
Roswell
The
Record.
Roswell Recorder, I believe it was. Yeah, the Roswell Recorder. What happened was when they first stated that it was in fact a saucer that was found, and then the next day they recanted that. It was the first indication of how the military was reaching out and grabbed the media by the throat and strangleholded them and strangleheld them into perpetuating the lie by telling the Roswell Recorder, as well as the radio stations in Roswell, that they would cut off their license to report anything. So that was the first opportunity that the government took at the time, the military basically took, to shut down the media. And then after that, there was a concerted effort throughout the 1950s to send out, the Durant Report was very instrumental in doing that. They found ways to psychologically circumvent any kind of story that would come out with respect to the UFO, I guess, phenomenon. And they made a concerted effort by telling the media that you shall not report this kind of stuff, and they held to their guns about that, to the point where they employed the Disney Corporation to assist them in trying to fabricate stories about this myth called UFOs and make it into something that was in fact a myth. So the Disney Corporation was very instrumental in cutting off any kind of real research, any real kind of journalistic investigation about the UFO phenomenon. In addition to all of that, the CIA became quite clearly and quite closely and in-depthly involved in circumventing any kind of stories about the UFO phenomenon by planting reporters and people who really were skeptical about that, and having them write articles that really kind of demeaned the whole phenomenon, demeaned the whole philosophical underpinning of what happened at Roswell. So they were in firm control of the media at the time, and that continued for a long, long time, 30 or 40 years, and perhaps even longer, where the media was really kind of well off into left field about this whole issue. And they did not only just play it down, but they perpetuated the same lies that the United States government was handing the rest of the public. So that media control was extremely strong, and people like Woodward and Bernstein, they were the ones who kind of showed that a model of journalistic integrity did in fact exist. And they, in the Watergate phenomenon, they were surely part of the media turnaround in investigating what the hell the government was up to with respect to the Roswell, with the Watergate phenomenon, with Nixon and all of his cadre of fraudulent operators. So they brought him down very, very quickly, and it was a real sign to a lot of researchers that the media, in fact, was capable of doing its job, but it really wasn't doing it completely with respect to the UFO issue, and that perpetuated itself for a long, long time. And I guess all the research that was done, people like Richard Dolan at the time was instrumental in writing and two excellent books on this: the UFOs and National Security State, volumes 1 and 2. And if any of your listeners ever want to read any kind of excellent account of the entire history of the UFO phenomenon, get Richard's books and have a look at them. Volumes 1 and 2, UFOs and National Security State. They'll give you a really good historical perspective on all of this and how it developed in the media with respect to all of that. But a lot of stuff happened after that. It evolved to the point where I guess one of the pivotal points where it kind of leaked out into the media was with Lawrence S. Rockefeller. And it was a Canadian, actually, who discovered this information, that Lawrence S. Rockefeller, a billionaire, and the Rockefeller family, was in contact and communication with Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton at the time, in the early part of the 1990s. And what Rockefeller was doing was telling Mr. Clinton, you all know that the UFO issue is real. You know that UFOs are real. So why don't you come forward? And as a result of all of that with Lawrence Rockefeller, there were some 53 letters that were exchanged between the White House and Rockefeller and the different agencies that showed that the United States government was nipping at the edges of coming out or coming forward about this information with respect to who John Podesta was. I'm sure your audience here has heard about John Podesta and what he did to advance this whole thing along with Leslie Kean. And that was one of the biggest, I think, in my mind, one of the biggest operations, all as subtle as it was, in helping to get this thing forward. And a Canadian, Grant Cameron, with the Rockefeller letters, was instrumental in doing most of that. So that was a very pivotal point, and that happened, I guess, towards the end of the 1990s. And then all of a sudden, after that, what happens is 2001. When a man named Dr. Stephen Greer, came forward with the Disclosure Project, and he brought forward dozens in 2001, dozens of witnesses, both military, civilian, and corporate, and witnesses with respect to the UFO issue. And he brought them forward at the press conference that they had at the Washington National Press Club in 2001. And as a result of that, that was an extremely expansive exercise in allowing the general public and the media to wake up to this thing. And some of the witnesses that were giving testimony that was unheard of. Missiles being shut down by UFOs, the far side of the moon having structures on it, astronauts coming forward and revealing that at no time during any of the astronauts' visits up in space were they unaccompanied by UFOs. They were always being in some sort of contact with or pursued by some type of UFO. Scott Carpenter said that publicly, and a number of astronauts have said those kinds of things. So with respect to what Stephen Greer did, was immensely important, but something happened. in following September. That was 9/11. And as soon as 9/11 happened, that part of the disclosure movement stalled. It stalled big time. It's a big iron door was shut down on this whole thing, and the entire planet became involved in terrorism. When the two buildings went down, the entire planet watched those things collapse over and over again. We just didn't see it happen once or twice. We saw it over and over again. And that does something to the psyche of people. It just illuminates a whole different way of perceiving reality. And it forced the issue of the UFO issue, anyways, onto the back pages of everything. It really was almost a non sequitur at the time. So it was really important to understand how the media reacted to 9/11. It sort of pushed everything aside, and there really wasn't in any other time, space, or inclination for anyone to really get involved with that to a point where it could make any difference with respect to changing the minds of people about the UFO issue. So that was a very important part. And there's other stuff too that happened, but it took a while for that to really kind of sink in. And I guess in an immediate sense, it stung people's psyche, and that lasted a long time. It lasted I would say, a good 12 to 15 years before anything really significant happened again.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you and kind of touch on because and obviously I remember 9/11 clearly, and we know Disclosure Project 1.0 happened a few months before. So, when we look back on it historically, it obviously is a huge moment in this path to where we're at now. But in the moment, so prior to 9/11, those first few months that after this hearing, from your recollection, did you feel like at the time it moved the needle any? Was there any attention being paid to it at that time?
What, the actual
That
2001 disclosure? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it did. I think it moved the needle significantly, despite the fact that it didn't get the recognition that it should have gotten because of 9/11. Stephen Greer did in fact move the needle, and to the point where some of his witnesses are in are in play today. Okay, a lot of them are in play today, as a matter of fact. Two of them, very significant witnesses, Captain Robert Salas and Dr. Robert Jacobs, both of them Air Force officers who were involved in having UFOs um, tamper with nuclear weapons. So that is something that is still very, very relevant into the whole situation that's occurring right now. So the echoes of 2001 and the Disclosure Project are still with us. There's no doubt about it. It had an effect, but it was almost like how can I put it? A rebounding echo. We're still hearing the reverberations of 2001, but in a different way, in a different tone. There's a different um, uh, psychology behind how we feel and how we know about the UFO issue at this point in history. And that different feeling is a result of what Stephen Greer did back then. And I should also recommend to our viewers, and I'm not sure of the level of awareness that people have about a number of these issues, but in 2013, Stephen Bassett of the Paradigm Research Group held the 2013 citizen hearings on disclosure, where it was a week-long event. I was there for all 5 days, and he
Wow.
had 40 witnesses with over 30 hours of testimony, and that was another bookmark in my journal with regard to the UFO issue. It brought forward things that very, very few people grasped onto, including the media. It got very little media coverage. It got some coverage in the Washington Post, a mention. Uh, it got a lot of coverage, front page coverage, believe it or not, in the Toronto Star here where I live, because Mitch Potter, who was the Washington bureau chief at the time for the Toronto Star, um, caught me as I was leaving the building, as I was leaving the Washington National Press Club. On my phone, he called me and he said, "What the hell is going on?" And I said, "Well, there's a conference here, there's a symposium, uh, there's a hearing here, a mock hearing on UFO disclosure." He said, "Well, what does that mean?" So I explained to him. I spent about 15 minutes talking to this man before I was literally asked by one of the security guards to leave. And so the next day on the front page of the Toronto Star had a front page article on it. So that particular event by Stephen Bassett was recognized here in Toronto anyways, and in some other smaller newspapers. But once again, it didn't get the recognition. It didn't, what I say, it doesn't crack the glass ceiling of secrecy. So that was something that, as far as I'm concerned, was something that the media really neglected, and it still didn't cut through the glass ceiling of what was going on, even though Stephen spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of sweat in bringing those people in. As a matter of fact, it was something that I think was even more precipitous in a lot of ways than the 2001 event. But people could argue one way or another on that. But in fact, I think it was a pivotal point in history. So we had to wait another, I'd say that was 2013. We had to wait another 4 years before something else significant happened. And that was 2017. And 2017 for me, Rob, was the biggest bookmark of all. Everything that happened before 2017, as far as I'm concerned, was, I call it the Old Testament of the UFO. And those of you who know what the Bible is all about, you'll understand what the word Old Testament means. It was sort of the, I'm not saying that it was old, it was just something that was not as present as it should have been, or recognized as what it should have been at the time. But in 2017, that's when the New Testament began. And that New Testament began with the New York Times, when the article came out in the New York Times by Ralph Blumenthal, Leslie Kean rather, and Helen A. Cooper, where they spoke about the Pentagon ATIP program. And that ATIP program was conducted in the C ring of the Pentagon. And it was an investigation that was brought about by funding of Senator Reid. And at the time, I think there was a couple of other senators who were involved in commandeering some money, $22 million, I believe, to operationalize the ATIP program to investigate UFOs. And that program lasted from 2007, if I recall, to about 2012. It was an unacknowledged program, and it was something that was investigating UFOs that no one knew about. And Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean and Helena Cooper blew the doors open on that, along with the Tic Tac videos, and along with a lot of other kinds of testimony with Chris Mellon and a lot of other people who were coming forward at the time. And that really set the tone for the next generation of information with regard to the disclosure movement. It was, in my estimation, the biggest thing to ever happen with respect to the actual media getting involved. And that to me was the point at which the media really recognized that this was something hot and that they needed to pay attention to.
Wow, yeah, you're right. And that's it is the time when everyone woke up. It was the time for me, like you say, New Testament is a great way to put it, because I'd always believed in UFOs, that they were real. I just had no, but I didn't realize that they were here every day, that they were here consistently. And 2017 is what kind of brought me into that. And then I immediately looked into history and studied just just pretty much everything that I could. And you touched on, I had no clue that you were actually at the citizens hearing for disclosure. That was one of the big things. I've watched that multiple times, and I believe that was definitely a pivotal moment in this. And I've always wanted to ask Richard Dolan, um, what you pretty much answered for me here. If it really got the ring that it should have had, just like I asked about 2001, because I think those were like the precipice for where we're at today on the current hearings, like the model for those. And they laid out a lot of great information, and had a lot of great speakers. And they did this, and even though the Congress members were retired, it was still in a format that should have been had gained a lot of attention. And then, yeah, you're right. I wanted to know that 4-year period between then and 2017. Like, was this the thing that led us into 2017? Did it have anything to do with that, do you think?
That's a really good question. I would have to, on first blush, I would have to say yes, it did, uh, because so many of the researchers and so many of the things that had happened and that were discovered about that forced people like Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean, who had always been involved in this, in the UFO issue. It consolidated for them, I believe, anyways, it consolidated for them the fact that this was a real issue. It was a real phenomenon, and that what it really did, Rob, was it consolidated, it solidified the fact that the planet Earth was being engaged by off-world civilizations. I think that, in and of itself, it confirmed that. Now, I'm not going to say that 2001 did or didn't do that. I think 2001, with Stephen Greer's initiative, did approach that issue too, but it didn't resonate in the same way that I think the journalists really climbed on top of it in the same way that they climbed on top of the 2013 event. That it gave them an opportunity to really look at a broad spectrum of evidence from a broad spectrum of international, not just United States journalists or researchers. Steve invited people from all over the place, all kinds of journalists from different parts of the planet. And the international nature of what was spoken about gave the journalists an indication that there's something a little bit more in depth that was going on. It was not just the United States that was involved in this. It was a global issue. And I think that once the recognition that this was in fact a global issue and not one that was just centered in the United States of America, that initiated a different kind of impetus, could I use that word, to prove that they needed to dig a little bit deeper or a lot deeper into what was really going on. And I think once John Podesta made his big statement, that it was time to look into, it was time for the government to do something about this. I think John Podesta was another person who brought this thing forward into the media, and the media really picked up on it, because if they said that a former chief of staff of a president of the United States thought that this was one of the biggest issues in all of history, and that it had to be investigated, I think it perked up the ears of media, and it began to filter a little bit more deeply into the journalistic approach about all of this. And I think that that kind of journalistic approach was consummated once, as I said again, in 2017. And that 2017 incident, or at least the article in the New York Times, that was the how can I put it? It was the pin that pricked the balloon, or the bomb that broke the dam. And it took a little bit of time, a good 3 years, I'd say, and maybe even a bit longer, before the United States Congress woke up. They got off their ass and they started thinking, maybe we should look a little bit more deeply into this. And then we led into a time period where the United States Navy was very involved with briefing congressional leaders, and they held several closed door briefings that brought leaders into I guess it was, I'm not sure it was called a skiff at the time, a secured location, a secured briefing, but they did bring information forward about the UFO issue that resonated from the New York Times article, because that's what really started things going. And the United States Navy was very instrumental in leading some of these congressional leaders into a pathway of belief that there was some significance, or a lot of significance, to the fact that we were in fact being engaged by, if not off-world civilizations, by a phenomenon that no one really had any idea about. Now, the United States Navy knew all about it. There's no doubt about it, because back in, I believe it was 1969, Roscoe Hillenkotter, who was a Navy admiral and the first director of the CIA, he came out into the New York Times back then and said that behind closed doors, everybody knows what's going on, and we need congressional hearings. He said that back in 1969. And it took a
Yeah.
long time for those hearings to happen. And as a result of the 2017 article in the New York Times again, and with respect to things like, I guess, what Marco Rubio did, and what I think Warner, his co-chair, when they injected the UAP language into the National Defense Authorization Act in 2001 and 2022, they actually got language about UAP in that first National Disclosure Authorization Act, rather National Defense Disclosure Act. And that was important for them to get that language in there. How they got that information into that act, how they somehow commandeered people to get it actually into it, we'll never know exactly what. I think it was the United States Navy briefings that did it, but there's all kinds of speculation about it. But getting the UAP language into that National Defense Act was extremely important to wake up Congress to the fact that there was something really strange going on. And that whole thing evolved into what we've got going right now is with the amendments by Schumer and Rounds. So you can see the evolution of all of this happening, and it was like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where we're at right now with respect to what that amendment has done, and how Congress is now completely, I would say, on side with respect to understanding what the UAP issue is really all about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the picture that we're painting tonight is actually an excellent one, because I think it for those coming in and just picking this up, they kind of see the path and the evolution of this conversation. So, Victor, what we're going to do right now is pause for a break. So, guys, we'll be right back with Victor Viggiani, and we'll be going into more of the history and even talking about Canada and the part that Canada may play in all this. So guys, just kick back and join us right here in After Hours hour number 2 here at Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Space Out Radio after hour number 2 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. And as we go ahead and continue with our guest here, Victor Viggiani, we're going to go ahead and jump into, some of the talk about current times and kind of what's going on now with the media, the news media. And I had a question for you on that, Victor. We were talking about, you were talking about how the media had essentially been put in a position where they were essentially assisting in the cover up, basically. So as far as today's media goes, is that something that you feel is still present in today's media reporting? Because when you have a Ralph Blumenthal, Leslie Kane, who are obviously on the path of disclosing or covering the information, then you have a whole separate group of media who
Mhm.
just seem to not get it. Like, is
Oh,
it still
you got it.
something currently?
Oh, you got it. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's really an awkward kind of thing to try to describe um, in so many different ways. Going back to that 2017 article by Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal and Helena Cooper, it was in fact monumental. There's no doubt about it. But what it didn't do is gave everyone, all media, permission to talk about this. And you know what I liken it to, and this is a bit of a digression, but it will make sense. Uh, there may be listeners who remember a time, and I know I remember time because I'm a school teacher and an elementary school principal at one time, uh, when the issue of child abuse arose. Okay, and that happened in the early part of the 1980s. And before that, there was no public discussion. Most of your listeners will not remember this or even care to remember it because there was real no discussion about children coming to school with bruises on them and it being taken seriously. Okay. And it was a hidden kind of undertow. No, it was the elephant in the room that no one spoke about. It was the bad uncle that everybody knew was rotten, but no one said anything about him. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
okay? You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah. So what I'm saying is that in the mid '80s, there was a program instituted throughout North America in different school boards of programs that were sent around to school. Some of them were puppet shows, some of them were staged theater kind of things. And what they talked about was this thing of indecent acts perpetrated upon children, both sexual and physical, with respect to child abuse. And one of those programs hit my school, and it was a school of about 720 kids, and this show came in. We had three performances: one for the primary division, and one for the junior, and one for the intermediate divisions, younger and older children. And that afternoon, we had 57 disclosures
Wow.
of children coming to the office and say, "Yes, my uncle put his hand down my pants." That's a gross thing, but it was the fact of the matter. And then that snowballed in Toronto and right across Canada. Once the child abuse issue came forward, everybody talked about it. It was in all of the media. Then they developed programs of indictments against family members. They allowed children to come forward. They allowed them to talk about these things with counselors. It was in the newspapers. It was on radio programs, and the courts were filled at the time, 7 or 8 years after that, with perpetrators. So it imbued itself in a way that exploded um, like a chemical fire in the media. It just exploded, and what hasn't happened yet with this issue. It hasn't that kind of explosion. Those of
Yeah.
us who know about it, those of us who are kind of well versed in about it, or at least semi aware of it, we're all sort of right on board. We're right there with it all. But there's still a huge section, a huge segment of our population who either don't give a damn about this stuff, don't want to bother to know about it, and just don't give a rat's ass about it. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Oh yeah.
A huge segment of the population still feel, why is it important to me? Why could this possibly have anything to do with my life and what and what's going on? Now, whose fault is that? Well, that could be the fault of us researchers who haven't made it plain enough to them as to why it's important, and that's why I'm on this program to tell people why this damn thing is important in their lives. We can get to that in a second. But the other reason is the media hasn't picked up on why this is important, because first of all, of the stigma surrounding journalists who want to cover this thing, and if they do cover it, their careers are tossed into the backyard, over the fence, and you never hear from them again. So that's a huge problem with this. So it really hasn't exploded in the same way as that metaphor that I used earlier, not a metaphor, but the reality of child abuse. It hasn't yet dug its nails into the skin of people. It hasn't really made a difference in the way they operate in their lives. And that's what I think one of the reasons why I do programs like this, and I know why you do it, is that we just don't need to get people to understand what UFOs are. That's pretty mundane. That's pretty
Yeah.
basic stuff. What we have to do is energize people to understand what's really going on. And in fact, we are being engaged by off-world civilizations that have been around for thousands, if not millions of more years than we have. And they're passing through our skies, observing, interacting, engaging, taking some of our people. For what reason? We don't know exactly what the agenda is. Okay. And not only are those things happening, those things are becoming so integral in the lives of a certain segment of our population. And you alluded to this initially in the broadcast about the abduction phenomenon with experiencers. These civilizations are engaging these people at a level of direct interface. They're taking them, they're interacting with them in different ways, not just positive ways, but negative ways too. And we don't know why they're doing it. But this phenomenon has yet to become imbued into the public consciousness in the same way that child abuse was, 30 or 40 years ago. It's not there yet. And my question is, why the hell not? And eventually, I think once we get to the point where the average person who's riding a bus or sitting in a restaurant with people and finds out this issue is really going on, and they kind of get the feeling this is really important. The big question that they're going to ask is, how long has this been going on, and why the hell don't I know about it? That
Yeah.
is a question that has to be asked. Why don't I know about it? And we can lay the blame at a lot of feet, at politicians' feet, journalists' feet, uh, the skepticism among some of the journalists that we deal with, the arguing back and forth as to what these damn things are. We haven't got our act straight about this, is basically what I'm saying. So there has to be some sort of unanimity among researchers about what's going on. And that unanimity, I think, is becoming more and more focused now. It really is. I believe it's happening in a more focused way, but it's still not there yet. The light is going this way instead of going that way. It has to be a laser beam rather than just a diffused kind of flashlight kind of light. So we're not there yet, and we can I guess we can discuss too what all of this new legislation is doing to focus that beam of light onto this issue, because there are some really exciting things that are going on, and with regard
Yes.
to how we interpret the United States in all of this, which is another big deal altogether.
Yes, you're speaking my language on this. I mean, everything you're saying, these are things that I resonate with, and I say myself to the viewers, and they know this. So yeah, kind of going into that. So there's a lot of talk, or there's the government is currently wanting to perpetrate that what we're seeing are UAPs and not UFOs. In your opinion, are these ET craft Are we seeing government craft, or are we seeing both?
I think the answer is both. Okay. Now, that's a really good question, and that's going to back up a little bit. The term UFO and UAP, they're synonymous. It's just that the recent the recent I guess congressional investigations in some of the offices that have been the Pentagon offices that have been opened up, they renamed UFOs to UAP. Big deal. Okay. It's just a way of redefining something for the public that they already know about. At least people like us do. We don't discriminate between that whole thing. They've just given it another name. So that's really, as far as I'm concerned, essentially a non-issue. But what we're seeing is a combination of misidentifications. Okay, that's part of it. There's no doubt about it. There's hundreds of misidentifications every single day. We're seeing, I suppose, in a way, certain weather phenomenon that can be attributed to these things. And we're also seeing, as back in the 50s and 60s, some experimental craft that may be going on. And I'm going to say something that I believe is going on right now, and that's the TR-3B craft. Okay, those the big, huge triangles that are flying around, and also larger structures that are going on that I've had reported to me directly. Things that are the size of a bloody Walmart building floating around. Okay, depending on how you want to describe their propulsion systems. These things are not passing by Jupiter and picking up Esso gasoline. They're running on anti-gravitic technologies, okay, and other kinds of energies that we know, exotic energies that we know about. And I believe the United States government has reverse engineered crashed vehicles. And this is something David Grush spoke to it in the July 26th hearing that he spoke about. So I believe very firmly that there are, in fact, some craft of that ilk that they are using exotic technologies, but I don't think any of the craft that are experimentations from the United States government, which in fact I think there is, because I'll digress in a moment if you want and tell you an experience that I had outside of Area 51. But I think, believe it or not, there is experimentation going on with anti-gravitic technology that are being misidentified as UFOs. Okay. Now, and then the other part of it is the other kinds of craft that are entering our skies and even into our water now. These are the underwater vehicles. So there's absolutely no doubt that is an echelon of craft that are in fact engaging our planet from a number of different civilizations, not just one or two. There are a number of civilizations that are visiting here. And so to answer your question, I think it's all of the above in a lot of ways.
Okay, great. Now, as far as getting into like the legislation, I had something there. So, based on the legislation passed and the amendments that have been proposed, do you foresee any like clear path for government disclosure?
Yes, I do. Initially, when Chuck Schumer and Mike Rounds developed the amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, the National Defense Authorization Act was already something that's done every single year. It's put forward in the intelligence community, in the military, and by the Congress, and it explains how they're going to spend their money in the military and all the intelligence agencies. The whole broad spectrum of how they sit around and dole out the money to all these different agencies. And back in 2021, Mark Rubio and Mark Warner, as I said earlier in the conversation, injected the UAP language into that national disclosure about the National Defense Authorization Act. And how they did it, don't know, but the language got there. And that's a really, really big step to understand that you, and there's sections, if you read the sections, you would think to yourself, how the heck did they get that kind of stuff in there? All kinds of demands to release information. And so that kept on going. And then Chuck Schumer eventually, as a result of what happened, I guess, at the hearings in the intelligence community, and David Grush's revelations, what Mike Rounds and Chuck Schumer did, they developed the amendment to force the government to develop finer structures, more defined structures as to how they would demand release of information from the military, from intelligence agencies, all intelligence agencies, and even corporations who were in charge or who had some of these technologies, to force them to come forward to release that information to the Congress, give them very, very strict guidelines. Now, what happened was during the reconciliation week before, I think it was just last week, they they really emasculated that whole amendment. They ripped it apart, and they, in essence, they emasculated it. They didn't totally annihilate it. They just weakened the whole thing. There's still structures within there that make demands of upon the military and corporations to release information. Those things are still there, and apparently the presidential panel of 9 individuals is still there. But the unfortunate part about it is there's no enforcement mechanism. Okay, they can make demands, but if these entities don't comply, my understanding is there's no real enforcement mechanism behind it. So to answer your question, it's sort of like a glass half full and a glass half empty. I think the glass is sort of half full. We got part of the way to inject this amendment into the National Defense Authorization Act. We got it there into the act, but it's still got a long way to go before it provides a clear pathway to some sort of disclosure. I think we're a little bit further down the road. It may evolve into something a little bit more specific. But I think what's going to be happening is, as a result of this, more and more congressional leaders are going to realize that the toothless nature of this amendment now is a real liability for them, and that what's going to happen is the corporate aerospace industry will take things over, will continue to take things over from the Congress and the military, because they are in charge of perfecting the technologies. Okay, and that's an important part of what's happening. So no longer is the Congress in charge of this issue. Okay, it could have been in charge of this issue if they could have made the demands of the corporations to release everything, but they didn't. Okay, there's no enforcement mechanism there. So what is happening is the corporations just go along their merry way and develop all this exotic technology to put back into the bank of the military to develop their own sophisticated weapons, to what we call supply the United States government with full spectrum dominance over the goddamn planet. That's what they're
Yeah.
able to do now. Okay. If the bill had been brought forward in the right way, that may have put a crimp in that plan. But right now, the corporations are in a position where they can continue to develop this weaponry and supply the United States of America with full spectrum dominance over the planet, and not only full spectrum dominance over the planet, Rob, but also full spectrum dominance in attempt to engage these UFO in a threatening kind of way. So what they've done is they've designed a mechanism whereby UFOs, UAP, call them whatever you want, will be defined as a threat. Okay, they're
Wow.
not a form of engagement in any kind by off-world species who may be benevolent or anything like that. Everything that's done will be perceived through the lens of a threat. And that's why these corporations are being allowed to do that, because the military wants to retain the position, the fallback position of full spectrum dominance. They want to develop weapons along that way. So so in answer to your question, the pathway is still obstructed as far as I'm concerned, in a big way, because the corporations still have the United States Congress in their back pocket, which is an egregious and awful situation to be in a democracy where the tail is wagging the dog.
Love it. Bravo. Bravo. Love that. I have to ask you this. So Canada, right? So it's been suggested by, I've heard a few people say this, that Canada may have been or is currently colluding with the United States in potentially harboring some of these projects maybe over the border in Canada, out of the reach of United States Congress. And if that's even a thing, I'm not sure. I'm going to ask you this. And then also, second part of that would be, what is Canada's current stance on disclosure?
Okay. Well, it's a good question. And it's very similar to what other countries are experiencing. I'm not certain that Canada is part of the technological development of this stuff. They may have been at one time, because I have um, some documentation that in the mid 50s, the Canadian government, through Avro, the Avro Corporation, the corporation that built the Avro Arrow, which was one of the most sophisticated jets in the 1960s. They developed a type of no, I'm not going to even call it a UFO, an exotic round craft, okay, that could move, up to Mach 5. But they depended on that particular kind of craft, depended on several engines that were circular in nature, and they would propel this thing in a way that a jet would be propelled. So, in fact, this, let's call it a UFO for whatever, for argument's sake. It was exotic. It was developed way before its time, but it ended. It was never ever built. The specifications were that it could do some really weird things, but nothing like anything that a typical UFO can do. So the United States also funded that initiative along with Canada, but nothing came of it. Now, what Canada is doing behind the scenes right now, nobody really knows. And to be really honest with you, Rob, I don't think anything is happening either at Bombardier or the Aero Corporation is defunct. I don't think there's any corporate entities here in Canada that are doing anything with respect to that kind of stuff. I have not gotten any information about that whatsoever. So the second part of your question was,
What is Canada's current stance on
okay,
disclosure?
yeah. Um, well, the current situation is such that where do I start? I, an MP from Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is, for our American listeners, is one of our provinces, and the MP his name is Larry McGuire, and he began asking some very pointed questions to the Deputy Minister of Natural Resources, John Hannaford, at a committee meeting, because Mr. McGuire is the co-chair of the committee, and he was throwing some questions at John Hannaford about incidents of craft, some sort of craft, hovering over nuclear facilities here in Canada, not nuclear installations for weaponry. We don't have any of that here in Canada, but nuclear facilities that generate energy. Okay, so things like Pickering, and there's a couple out in the east that nuclear plants, and he got information through some whistleblowers that there were craft of unknown origin, or apparently of unknown origin, hovering over these power plants, and he demanded answers from the Deputy Minister of Natural Resources about that. And the Ontario Nuclear Commission had no response about it. They were closed mouth about it. But we found out later that, in fact, there were certain kinds of craft, unknown kinds of craft, that were in fact hovering over these nuclear installations in Ontario and in parts of Quebec and New Brunswick. So he began asking all kinds of questions, and he wrote letters to the former Minister of Defense, Anita Anand, asking her to look into it. She didn't. He wrote more letters to Hannaford to investigate. He didn't. And as a result of all of that, he's been interviewed on CTV, one of Canada's biggest television networks, and he's been demanding answers to these questions and not getting any kind of response. So I've been in close contact with his office, with his parliamentary assistant, trying to provide them with information about this whole situation as best as I could. But in one of the letters, what Mr. McGuire did was he linked what was going on here in Canada to what was going on in the United States with respect to the National Disclosure Act, National Defense Authorization Act. I keep on saying disclosure for some reason. I'm not sure why. I got it on the brain, I suppose. But he alluded to that in one of his letters to Mona Nemmer, who was the chief science officer in charge of Sky Project Canada, which has been given the authority or the opportunity to investigate UFOs. And he tried to link what was happening here with the nuclear facilities as to what might be happening in the United States with regard to the nuclear ICBM locations in the United States. He tried to link those two issues. And once again, he met up with a dead end. So there was no answer. So he has kept on pushing. However, unfortunately, and I've been in contact with his office trying to supply them as much information as I can with respect to what's going on. But I believe Mr. McGuire has either got tired of the issue, been told to back off, or maybe he's operating behind the scenes and we don't know about it. But after a very, very public orientation that he had, I guess it was beginning part of 2022 when he made a big deal about it because it was covered a bit here in the media. It's fallen silent. The activity that he had and the publications that he had and the kinds of statements that he had made and the questions that he's asking have ended. So I'm only left with the conclusion that he's either gotten tired of the issue, which I don't think is true. He could be operating behind the scenes, doing things that we don't know about that he might come up with later on, or he's been told to step back and shut his mouth. So that's where we stand right now. And this thing that was operationalized called Sky Project Canada is an absolute nothing bar. University of Ottawa scientific person, a scientist, has been put in charge of it, Mona Nemmer, and they've got a mandate to respond to some of these questions by 2024, which I know nothing will come of because she knows nothing about the issue whatsoever. And it's like inviting, someone who set your house on fire to invite them for dinner to help you put the fire out. It's useless. It's just useless. So that's where we're at here in Canada. Now, there are a couple of journalists on this, but they are not really digging into it as deeply as they should. And I'm part of a group that's trying to get some journalists together to do some real incisive work into this. And we have some, hopefully have some interesting things happening in the future with respect to how we're going to get it out.
Had to be awesome. And with the whole, if we go back to the beginning of this year, the whole spy balloon thing happening between our borders here, and how the U.S. worked with Canada, I'm sure, to differentiate what was what, and then with NORAD right over here, there's a lot of definite, collusion on some level between our countries, and it's
sure.
just definitely a question out there, but. I did have this here. So right now, there's terms being thrown around in this conversation. Just the new term nowadays, either controlled disclosure or catastrophic disclosure. So with your understanding of those terms, what is your interpretation of those, and which side do you fall on in order to bring disclosure?
Well, if if you're part of a strategy, let's talk about two different strategies. Okay, the strategy of people who want disclosure to move forward. Okay, let's just set that aside for a second. People like you and I who have some sort of idea of what a strategy might be to bring some sort of disclosure about. That's one aspect of it. But if the Canadian government and if the American government are part of a strategy that will use tactics to bring this about or not bring it about, you have to ask yourself the question, is what they are moving towards in one way or another? When I say they, I'm not talking necessarily about, the government, the people sitting in the benches in the Congress. I'm not talking about people sitting even in the Pentagon. I'm talking about strategies and tactics of the deep state people, the deep state individuals, departments, whatever they may be, who know pretty much the answer to just about any question that you want to ask. Okay. And the people at the Pentagon, they may know some. The people in Congress, they may know some of it, but there are departments or backroom boys, as I like to call them,
Yeah.
that have a really, really clear understanding of what this UAP issue is all about. Okay, they may have answers to questions like where these things might be from. Okay, what kinds of civilizations are we dealing with? How many civilizations are we dealing with? Okay, have these civilizations interacted with other planets like Earth? Okay, and what has the result been of that kind of interaction with other planets that are similar to Earth in development, either a little more advanced or a little less advanced than us? I believe there is a group of people, or there's a department someplace in the bowels of the United States, whatever, that know the answers to those questions. Okay, I firmly believe that. I have no doubt that there are some individuals who have the answers to those questions. Okay, now the question is, um, who among that group wants to keep it that way, secret, sequestered, and away from us, and who in that group want to kind of have some sort of release of the air out of the balloon? At what pace do they want? What strategies are they going to envelop in a general way to say, okay, this is going to happen anyways, folks. So it's inevitable. There's just no doubt that this is inevitable. And that's where we might lead to the catastrophic disclosure argument. But it's going to happen. So how are we going to go about gradually letting the air out of the balloon so that eventually everybody knows about this? Or are we just going to keep a secret until the cows come home? And we will not allow anything or any one entity to force us to allow it out. And that could be Congress. So what? They can't tell us what to do. And even if they do tell us what to do, we'll tell them what they want to hear, and we'll still keep information back. So it's going to never get out in one way or another if these people are using strategies and tactics to have a closed door kind of approach to disclosure. And I feel that is a serious option that could have. They are that powerful, as far as I'm concerned, that could actually be the case. Now, there's the other aspect to this as to how far the citizenry can push the media to a point where another cosmic Watergate happens, where this whole thing just blows up and everybody knows about it, like I talked about before. Like it's a huge Watergate incident. So we get all of the burglars out into court. We get Nixon releasing the tapes. We get all this stuff happening, and the Washington Post covers it all. People go to jail. Nixon resigns. He's impeached or whatever. Is that kind of cosmic Watergate going to happen where everybody knows about it, and it becomes the conversation on buses, in restaurants, in dentist waiting rooms, in hospitals, in churches, in schools, and universities, when it becomes a whole mist of a conversation that everybody breathes in? It's not only just something that they see; it becomes part of their consciousness. And once this issue is released in that way, once this issue becomes part of the general public's consciousness, not just their awareness, their consciousness, they feel that there is something big going on that's much bigger than them. And once that happens, then you're going to get this I'm not going to say catastrophic disclosure, because it's going to be a big kind of disclosure that no one can control if that happens. Now, the other side of that coin, and this is a real stretch, I guess, is you use the term catastrophic disclosure, as I've heard it defined, is if the ETs show up on Super
Essentially,
Bowl,
just an immediate. They're here. Whether
Super Bowl
that's
Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. Okay, all the cameras are there. Everything is happening. There are 120,000 people in the stands. All the major networks are covering it. And the newspapers are there, and this craft comes in and just whoomp. There's your catastrophic disclosure. No, that's it's almost like landing on the White House lawn, but I've made it a little bit of a bigger scenario. If that kind of incident ever happens, if one of these races, and that's the other question too, if it's just one race that decides to do this, that's one thing. But what if a collective of these races, of these civilizations, decide to do something like that? That will mean something totally different. If there is, in fact, and I know there is, this collective that's out there, this bunch of extremely non-human, bright, intelligent races out there. They're going to manage this in a way that's not going to step on this planet like we would step on an anthill. They're I believe they're, and this is what some of the abductees have told us, they are far too advanced to do something catastrophic like that. I just don't think that that's the way they operate. And if it was the way they operate, we'd have been breakfast long ago. I mean, when you think about it, or we're just so unimportant. They just come by here. Let's just keep on observing them. They're really nothing to be worried about because they're going to destroy themselves anyways with a number of extinction behaviors. So let's just watch them destroy themselves, and we'll visit the planet and pick up some lettuce and tomatoes after they're all done. There's so many ways that this catastrophic thing could happen. If it's one single race, that's one thing. If it's a multiplicity of these races who decide to do something, that's an entirely different kettle of fish. And a lot of people are hoping that if it's a community out there that recognizes us as essentially an important kind of species, okay, that because we have this corporeal existence to us, and we also have this thing called an energy source or a soul or whatever the hell you want to describe that keeps us going after these containers are finished. Okay, if in fact they relate to the spiritual aspect of who we are, to that energy level, the consciousness that we have, or that we might even share with them, if they recognize that we are those kinds of beings, they may be more open to some sort of diplomatic conversation with us and saying, okay, you guys are really screwing things up, and all you have to do is read the newspapers to find out how we're really engaging in extinction behaviors literally every single day. We're destroying ourselves, the planet, the animal life, the environment. We're screwing up big time. There's just no doubt about it. And I use the metaphor: name one thing that's getting better.
Yeah, nothing.
Name. Yeah, right. I mean, I challenge your listeners. Name one thing that's getting better. There isn't. I can't come up with anything that's getting better. Okay. The sun rose this morning. Yeah, that's fine. That's good. And it set tonight. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no big guarantee that sun's going to rise again tomorrow. There's a high probability that it will, but there's no guarantee the sun's going to rise tomorrow. And we live like that every single day. And with that kind of uncertainty, our planet is engaged in a cyclical war economy. Okay. Defecating in our own backyards. Okay. Filling the oceans with plastic. Stuffing fossil fuels down the throat of anything that moves. You name it, and we're doing it. We live under the threat of nuclear war every single day, and we're just not a species who's taking care of the planet. So that could be a reason why, if they're as sentient as they appear to be, and if they're as evolved as they appear to be. And can you imagine a race of beings that are millions to 2, 3, 4 million years in advance of us? How much more advanced their understanding of the cosmos is and the nature of the universe? There's just no telling how advanced they are.
Right.
So it could be something that if they recognize that existence that we have, that non-corporeal existence that we have, that they may want to engage with us in some sort of diplomatic relations that could lead us to another path. And that would be a kind of disclosure that, you look at all the scenarios, that has to be one of the better ones that's an opportunity for us as a species. At least that's what my mode of reasoning is. That's the way I think about this. I'm not thinking about a dead end scenario. Maybe I'm deluding myself, but that's not what the experiencers, the abductees, are talking about. They're talking about races that are telling us that we're screwing up, and that they may have ways of helping us. But that again, we've got to figure out a way to help ourselves first before we engage them. And once we decide to do that as an international community, which we're so far away from, I mean, we can't even agree on the color of the sky, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
let alone what to do with the environment. So
it's sad.
I hope I answered that question,
You
because
did.
there's so many different ways of approaching how disclosure and that pathway is going to evolve.
You did, and I'm glad that you, because I wanted your perspective, because the terms can be perceived different ways by different people. So I
Oh, for
wanted to
sure.
hear your perspective on it, because mine's is simply, when I look at catastrophic, and I think catastrophic is a strong word, but when I look at controlled versus catastrophic, to me, what it means is a controlled disclosure is simply the government, um, slow dripping information for as long a period of time as it takes for them to
Mhm.
still maintain power at the end of this.
You got
So
it.
regardless whatever plan it is, they maintain power in the end. Catastrophic disclosure is more of a just an awakening process for humanity, saying, "Hey, we're not alone, and what do we do now?" So
Exactly. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, that's the
Yeah.
catastrophic
Yeah.
disclosure. And in essence, it really doesn't. In that scenario, it wouldn't necessarily be catastrophic per se.
Mhm.
It would just be in the moment that humanity needs to wake up. Now,
Exactly. Yeah.
going into that, because I know that we talked at the beginning of this, your view for humanity was how we started this off. So, what is your view post disclosure? Like, what do you hope to see, or what do you think the outlook is for humanity once we do have that moment, whether it's
Mhm.
10
Mhm.
years down the line or
Yeah.
whether it's tomorrow?
Right. Good. That's a good question. Good line of reasoning. First of all, let me say that I really like your description of controlled disclosure. That it's a slow drip, but in the end, the powers that be will still maintain control. I really like that. Not that I like it necessarily, but I really understand that line of thinking, because it kind of demonstrates what I kind of said earlier about the people in the deep state entities. They want to maintain control. They want to keep the status quo in favor of them. They do not want any kind of democratic values to seep into into their existence. They want to maintain control, whether that be the United States backroom boys or a global thing. That to me is, I really don't like talking about that kind of thing, because it just brings up all kinds of negative um, indications of who we are as a species. And if that's how we operate, the day of reckoning is coming real soon. It's not going to be very pleasant. So your question again was humanity and where we see each other going. You see,
Yeah,
that
your
base,
view.
yeah.
In your view,
Mhm,
how would
mhm.
you? What do you feel? Where do you feel humanity goes after this? Because I look post
Mm,
UFO, just like you said in the
yeah,
beginning. It's not really about they're here.
yeah.
It's about, okay, they're here now. What do we do?
Yeah,
So, what
what
is your view on that?
well, let's start from the point of view that once there is some sort of and I guess the best way to put it is global awareness that we are that these things are real, and that they are a manifestation of non-human intelligence, and in some way that manifestation of the engagement is sort of um, made aware to all people. Okay, let's suppose that everybody believes that all at once, like 9/11. Okay, everybody knew it. There wasn't anybody on the planet who didn't have a radio or TV that didn't know about this kind of thing. Did 9/11. So, like the Kennedy assassination. Okay, it happened when I was in high school, and everybody knew about it. You walked into a corner store, they were talking about it. Everybody knew. So once this issue reaches that density of awareness, let's use that term, density of awareness, with everyone knowing what it is, where does humanity go? Well, I think humanity will have to really come to some realization that if there are, in fact, a number of species that are out there that are as advanced as we have two choices. Okay. Will the military have developed stuff to fight these people off? Because that's a threat scenario, and anything that's different than us is going to have to be bombed out of the sky or shot out of the sky. There's that mode of reasoning that might take over. That's where humanity might go. Okay. Now, what will deter that kind of mode of reasoning could be some sort of diplomatic initiatives or understanding brought about by a vast education program among all of the human family, okay, that would involve universities, okay, all academics, churches, schools, community organizations, the justice system. It would involve everyone who has any kind of organizational structure to it to educate to first of all accept the notion that we're being engaged by off-world civilization, and then begin some sort of educational program that will make people aware of what is going on and allow people to make their own decisions of what it means to them as an individual. And if people can internalize the kinds of things that we're talking about and realize that there may be a diplomatic opening here for us to step away from some of these extinction behaviors that we're involved in, and if they truly believe that that kind of opportunity is there, we could be on a completely different path to eliminating some of the extinction behaviors that we're engaged in right now. And if I think if the entire human family got to realize that we can eliminate some of these extinction behaviors and pursue a life that other planets may have had opportunities to engage in because of their interaction. Maybe it's time for us to engage with other planets who've had these things happen to, had this stuff happen to them. Maybe we need to send diplomats there. Well, you've had these UFOs in your skies for how long? Yes, we did. And we engaged with them, and here was the results of it. Maybe we need to send diplomats there. Is that a strange idea? It's a thought that's never been thought before, as far as I'm concerned.
There you
Maybe
go.
we need to engage with other species that aren't as evolved as these people, but have engaged the same kind of things that we're involved with. Maybe we should speak to them. Maybe that'll provide some sort of global awareness as to where we are headed as a species.
Yeah.
So it's like asking how long is a piece of string. You just don't know. You
Yeah,
just don't know
no.
where we're headed.
But and here's the thing. This is why we have these conversations, because that idea is no better than this one, but we all have perspectives, and the conversation is
Hmm.
kind of how we gauge things and move forward, because that could be a great idea if we have the ability to do so.
Hmm.
So I love it. And kind of getting in, because I know we have about 6 minutes left.
Yeah,
So you have a website, which is ZlandCommunications NewsNetwork. So
that's
I
right.
was checking it out, and there was one thing on. You have a lot of great stories on there, but there was one thing that I think kind of will put the cherry on top here. You had an article, or something you wrote up, called "The Presidential Looking Glass," right? And I thought that was so awesome. It's you put here, the speech we deserve to hear,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And do you think there will be a day that we will get this speech? And what do you think it takes to get there? So, and it was pretty long, because I wanted to just read it here today,
Yeah,
because it was
yeah,
awesome enough to do that.
yeah.
But if you could kind of give us
Okay.
a
Well, first of all, I didn't write that. Okay.
okay.
Okay. I didn't write that. Bryce Zabel wrote it. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
He there was a version of it. There was a version of it in a book. It's called AD, After Disclosure, by Richard Dolan and Bryce Zabel. They co-wrote that book.
Okay.
What disclosure is going to look like. It's a brilliant book. If you get a chance, just read it. It's called AD, After Disclosure.
Yes.
Anyways, Bryce and Richard, I'm not sure who or maybe they co-authored this letter, but it was the letter or the speech that the United States president, whoever that would have been at the time, would sit down on a Friday night and before cameras to the whole nation and say, "Here's the speech of disclosure, ladies and gentlemen. I have some news to bring to you that we've been engaged by off-world civilizations, and here, and he would give the disclosure speech." Now, what I
Yes.
think Bryce did is he rewrote that letter, he changed it a bit, he massaged it, and I read that letter several times before I said, you know what, I'm just going to throw this out there, put it on the website, and just for people to digest, because it is, as you said, it is so dense. It is so, it encapsulates everything that might happen if a president of the United States got the information and his advisors found a way to present this to the American people. And I think it's a good demonstration of the kind of thing You know what? To be really honest with you, Rob, I am almost 80% sure that that kind of thing is going to happen at some point. I really
Mm.
do. There will be a disclosure president, and there will be a time when that disclosure president will make that kind of speech. And the reason I believe that is because people like Richard Dolan and Stephen Bassett and it doesn't matter who, all of these researchers, they've all been heading in that direction. Okay. Paul Hellyer is one who felt that way, that there would be some sort of broad announcement like that. Because most of our feelings are that this is in fact inevitable. It's going to hit us at a certain period of time, and we have to do it in a really, really smart, intelligent way so that people don't jump out of their basement windows and do dastardly things because the world's coming to an end. We have
Right.
to do it in a cogent, intelligent, realistic way to bring people into contact with it, with this new reality. And I think that speech really kind of, if you read it once or twice, you can really get an idea as to what the thought processes are behind how this might happen. It's a brilliant letter that I would really recommend people to go to, but at Zland Communications.
Yes, I agree. And everybody definitely go over there. And then maybe hour three, if we have any time, I may read it. But Victor, I want to thank you for coming today. It was awesome having this conversation with you. I really feel like we do align and we have a lot of the similar views on things.
Hmm.
So I think, it would be great to also conversate with you in the future. So I have all your information, and if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to maybe set something up for a later time and have you back.
By all means, Rob, it's been a pleasure, and I'm hoping that your listeners and viewers have benefited from our conversation, and that it's opened a few eyes, and it's brought about some sort of clarity, um, despite my passion getting in the way. It's brought some
Which
sort
is
of
great.
clarity. Yeah, the operational, being a teacher, I know we got to go here.
You're
Being a
fine.
teacher, I really am one to bring about clarity to things, to have people, to brush the fur the other way, to have people do their own thinking about this rather than just
Yes.
listening to the point of view and accepting it. They have to do their own thinking and their own research. So I congratulate you on a great show, and you call back anytime, and we'd love to talk to you again.
All right. I appreciate that. And can you tell everybody where they can find you?
It's at ZlandCommunications blogspot.com.
All right, guys. Make sure you go and check Victor out. A lot of awesome stuff on the site. And yeah, definitely, again, thank you, Victor, for coming in tonight. You enjoy the rest of your night and have a great holiday season coming up here.
Thank you very much, Rod, and you take care too.
All right, and guys, as we're gonna go ahead and pause for the cause with our last break of the night as we get ready to jump into hour three, only on Spaced Out Radio. welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. And for the final hour, we're going to do a couple things a little different tonight. We had our paranormal reporter, Travis Mustos, who is feeling under the weather. So, guys, wish Travis well. And we're going to go ahead and do a couple of other things in Travis's spot tonight. So everybody definitely wish Travis well, good health, and we will see him back soon. So what I wanted to do, a couple things here. DB Nobody, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you. Susie B also. Yeah, we got some more people here. Say hi to you guys real quick. Maggie M10, I saw you come in as well. Thank you for coming in. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the show so far. We had a great guest here with Victor Viggiani. Great conversation. So we're going to go ahead and continue this into hour number 3. So what I wanted to do, I alluded to the speech that he has posted on his website. And I guess he stated that Bryce Zabel is the one that actually wrote it, either him or Richard Dolan. So I wanted to read it because it's pretty impactful. And we'll go ahead and read that in just a moment here. But what I want to do is go ahead and promote what we are doing here at Spaced Out Radio. So we don't have ugly swag. As you can see, we got the Rob G. We got the Rob G shirt on right here. So we do not have ugly swag. And we have the Spaced Out Radio tumbler. So make sure you guys go get one of these and go ahead and get your Rob G gear as well. Get your Dave Scott draws, whatever you need to do. But let's go ahead and get some promotion for the show real quick here. And we will start with the SOR commercial.
Guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have Spaced Out Radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com. Shop there today and make yourself look good. You love your woo. It's time to make a commitment to the 3rd annual SOR Fan Party. This time, we're heading to Reno, Nevada and the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort, May 10th through 12th, 2024. Tickets are $60 or $100 for VIP. With that, you get a free radio show. You get to hang out with celebrity guests from Spaced Out Radio, including our team, who are coming to hang out with you. You get to meet the entire team, like Science Bob, Merle, Melinda Leslie, Geraldina Roscoe, and more. It's a weekend packed with adventure, and we want you there. After all, we're doing this for you. Find out more and get your tickets at info@spacedoutradio.com and book your hotels today at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. Come join us for the SOR Fan Party, May 10th through 12th, 2024.
All right. So make sure you guys are there May 10th through 12th. 2024 is going to be an awesome time. And like I said, it's stacked up. The lineup is stacked up. And we really can't wait to meet you. We want to meet you, right? So here we are on the Sunday. We're at the end of the weekend. We're in the last hour. So we're going to go ahead and have a little fun tonight in place of our main man, Travis Musto. So what I'm going to do is bring up the article, actually, that the speech, rather, that was written by Bryce Zabel. And let's just, I want you to see what you think about this. So this would be, let's set the stage. So we wake up tomorrow, right? The president of the United States is about to take the podium. We see the podium, nobody standing at it yet. The president is about to walk up to this podium and give the speech that we've all been waiting for. And it might sound a little bit like this. We're going to go ahead and bring this up. And I love it. The speech we deserve to hear. And I think it's just so fitting. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, guys, and just picture the moment. Like this could be a thing. We could wake up literally any day. I would hope, I'm going to give government the benefit of the doubt, even though we know they'll never bring disclosure. But if they just happen to say, hey, you know what, let's do this for humanity, and the president says, okay, I'm going to take the stage, it might play out like this. So, my fellow Americans, this is not a speech I ever expected to give. Not tonight, not anytime. Yet to ask another person in my administration to deliver this message is to let you down, to fail to do my duty. Being president of the United States carries with it many responsibilities. The most important one, I believe, is to be accountable to the citizens of this country and tell them the truth. Tonight, I will do that. I'll look you in the eye and tell you the truth as I know it. One that is based on the consensus of some of the best minds this country has to offer in government, military, and science, corroborated by the intelligence gathering from over a dozen agencies. What we'll discuss tonight will need all of us to see each other as we must, as mothers and fathers, as brothers and sisters, and mostly as fellow human beings who need each other and share a common future as citizens of this earth. Last summer, when our attention was mostly on defeating the coronavirus, the Senate Committee on Intelligence gave the previous administration an obligation that has lasted into my current administration. The Senate Committee gave the Office of the Director of National Intelligence 180 days to prepare a report on UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena. The DNI was directed to work with all intelligence gathering agencies, including the Department of Defense. I appointed the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines. I also appointed the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. That makes their report ultimately my responsibility as well. The 6-month clock on the report began when the former president signed the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 last December. It means the report's due date is on or before June 25th of this year. You've probably heard about UAP sightings and news coverage. The committee's concern about unidentified aerial phenomena was based on an increasing number of cases where our nation's military facilities and forces, including our nuclear assets, were encountering unknown and anomalous situations with craft operating in our nation's airspace. These vehicles exhibited abilities that appeared to be advanced technology. Let me be specific. We have reports of these UAPs traveling over 10,000 miles per hour, going from space to air, and then sometimes even into the sea. They have evaded our radar and seem to have no wings or other signs of propulsion. Indeed, they seem to defy gravity. These are reports from our nation's top military pilots, corroborated by our nation's most cutting edge equipment. Tonight, I can report to you that the report has been written. It is ready for delivery to the Senate in a public forum to be shared with the American people. We could have delayed this report. That happens often. We could have placed more time on it behind walls of classification. That happens too. I read the first draft of this report 3 nights ago, sitting at my desk in the Oval Office. The public version is short, but its message is powerful. While millions of Americans and people around the world have seen such objects with their own eyes, the report focuses primarily on military encounters where there are multiple witnesses and supporting technical data. It makes one thing extremely clear. These UAP are the figments of no one's imagination. They exist. The report makes another thing quite clear. The United States, which operates and maintains the greatest military capabilities and assets that the world has ever known, does not make these vehicles. They are not ours. Some have been concerned that perhaps our adversaries make them, that somehow other nations have leapfrogged our country in advanced technology, placing our country and our citizens at risk. That is a legitimate concern, and it is an urgent priority of this nation to understand if nations like Russia or China are behind them. This report makes clear that it is extremely unlikely that any other nation on this earth makes these vehicles. They are likely not terrestrial objects, as the report refers to them, but they are still under intelligent control. If we don't make these objects and no other nation on earth does either, then who does? What do they want? The report does not answer those questions, although it is clear that we must ask them now. It is a priority of this administration that we do just that. And so tonight, I come not just to speak to my fellow Americans, but to all of my fellow citizens of the world. I spoke in my inaugural address about how we must come together and avoid the poison of partisanship. There is no other issue where that is as important as this one. The presence of unidentified aerial phenomena remains a great mystery. It is one we must solve together. If there is a mundane or terrestrial explanation, we will find it. If we discover that we are not alone in this universe, we will explore that mystery together. The work ahead will involve not just Americans, it will need our friends around the world, the United Kingdom, Germany, Brazil, France, India, South Korea, Australia, Israel, Mexico, Canada, and so many others that I can't name them all tonight. But the work will also need to involve countries that we have had difficult relations with: Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Afghanistan, Iraq, and others. From the United Nations to NATO to the Vatican, every global institution is going to have to play a part. There is another challenging truth, however, one that I contemplated at length while alone in the Oval Office. I can't dodge it, and I won't sugarcoat it. I'm 78 years old. If this is not the time in my life for personal courage, there's never going to be a time. What I realized is that these reports go back over 7 decades. These objects were once called Foo Fighters, then flying saucers. Then they became UFOs, or unidentified flying objects. Now we call them UAP. By whatever name we refer to them, they have always been a part of this mysterious phenomenon. This government and other governments around the world have known about this issue, and instead of leveling with the people of the world and making them part of the solution, they have classified the truth, ridiculed people who knew about it and wanted answers, and denied its very existence. Initially, this was done after the devastation of World War II, when our leaders in government and the military had a desire to find answers first before sharing them in order to prevent public panic. But the answers didn't come easy, and as the years went on, instead of more people knowing, fewer and fewer did. Instead of becoming less secret, the entire mystery became more secret. On a personal basis, I can only say that I never thought much about the subject. I was busy raising a family and serving our country in the U.S. Senate, then as vice president. In all those years, I was never briefed specifically on the topic. I heard rumors from time to time, but the world is a dangerous place and politics is a demanding business. There was always something else that demanded my attention. For most of my political life, I simply assumed that if there was something to this, that I would be told about it, even when, as President Obama's vice president, I was briefed on a few specific incidents. It was always done with the understanding that these were likely created by our adversaries and that they were being dealt with properly. It is understandable if some, if not many of you, are angry. If you feel that your country has lied to you about something that you, as a human being, have a right to know. There will be days ahead when that is sorted out, I promise you. We may be on the brink of something truly historic that will change the way we see ourselves and our place in the universe. There is no clear roadmap, but we are resourceful and we have met great challenges before. We all know that we live in extraordinary times. The past year has challenged folks across the nation. A pandemic took the lives of over 500,000 Americans, and each life impacted so many others. But we are here and we persevere as we always do. As we always do. We are rebuilding our economy. Even as we rebuild our roads and bridges, let's not forget, though, that we are also rebuilding our national spirit. As Americans, we're a country built on optimism, a country that sees a better future for our children as their birthright. That should never change. What we need now, however, is to pivot towards action. Rather than a few of us studying this issue, it's time for all of us to be involved. All of us together are smarter than any one of us. There may even be reason to anticipate progress. The Apollo program got us to the moon, but it has improved our lives in so many ways since, thanks to the scientific and technological breakthroughs it has allowed us to see that we might not have seen without it. This may happen again. Whatever our future holds, this report will be delivered tomorrow morning at exactly 9 a.m. by the Office of Director of National Intelligence to the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. As that happens, I have ordered that the government printing office see that the unclassified version of the report be made public to all of you who want to read it. There will be many copies made. They will be free to all, and the public section of the report itself will appear on the internet also at 9 a.m. I will be meeting in the days ahead with both Democratic and Republican leaders in Congress. I will demand that we find common ground. A bipartisan plan to get more of the facts and share them with you will be discussed and presented. There will need to be procedures and policies implemented to review classification. And while we can share the overall truth, some documents will need to remain classified while they are evaluated in a way that is consistent with our national interest. If leaders in the Senate and the House believe the public congressional hearings are in store, my administration will support them. At the same time, I will be reaching out to foreign leaders, both friend and foe. That will include, as I've said, our alliances in NATO and our global commitments like the UN. The United States is not the only country on earth to have encountered this phenomenon. Yet the sharing of the knowledge has been impeded by suspicion between countries over the years. Cooperation is essential, but it need not violate any nation's sovereignty or security. I know that what I've said tonight raises far more concerns than it answers. This is not the end of the process. It is only the beginning. Still, I will be guided by one principle. The issue that was hushed up by one generation, turned into an object of derision by another, now deserves to be heard straight up in this one. This is a unique moment in history and it requires American leadership. In the weeks ahead, working with nations of the world, we'll coordinate a multilateral effort to learn the truth together and say it out loud. If we know more than others, we will say more than others. The phenomenon we face has not changed tonight. Only our way of looking at it has. That is a good thing. As the Gospel of John tells us, the truth will set you free. I want to close on one final thought tonight. It's about hope. After I read this report, I went up to the family quarters in the White House. Jill was still awake reading a book. As she could see that I was disturbed, the report is not classified. I told her what was in it. She took my hand, and with the reassuring way she has, she told me, maybe we'll finally be able to see how alike we are. God bless her. That's my hope too. That silver lining is that whoever else we may encounter in the days ahead will hold up a mirror for us to see ourselves and to understand that despite our own differences, we are all humans together and we must live in peace with each other and with all life. May God bless my fellow Americans. May God bless our fellow citizens of this earth. Originally produced or published at medium.com by Bryce Zabel in 2021. And you can find that over on Victor Viggiani's website over at ZlandCommunications.blogspot.com. However, I thought that was pretty powerful because, that's a speech that everyone wants to hear. That's, literally, you could take yourself there for a moment that you're in that moment and this is the speech that is being delivered. And I think it's really powerful because, we, I don't put the faith into the government to be the ones to make this happen, but anything can happen, right? And so maybe tomorrow, the president just says, "Hey, we're just going to do this," and We're going to bypass everything that's being said right now, or all these roadblocks. We're just going to knock them out the way, and wishful thinking, right? But if we never hear the speech, at least, that's a look into how that moment could be, or how it could feel if we never actually see this, which is highly unlikely that we will. But I thought that was pretty awesome when I was reading into Victor, and there's a lot of great stuff on that site, and they are sourced from different places. And I guess it's a lot of the stuff that he feels is important to this whole movement, and he has it published there on his blog spot. So it's a great place for you to go and take a look for some good stuff. And let me see. Let's see here. Go back and see. Yes. No problem at all, Christine. No problem at all. No problem at all. I wanted to definitely do that. So with that being said, this is technically, well, no, it's not the last one of the year. This is the last one before the holiday season coming up. But we will have another show before the new year. So we'll be able to do some end of the year festivities. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna pull out an oldie but goodie. Yeah. So I had a few questions here, and I just wanted to go over these, as we only have about 20 minutes here left tonight, and I want to make sure everybody goes into the week feeling good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick, and these are gonna be general questions, right? Because I think I'm feeling like the cryptic questions, and maybe we'll still jump in some of those just to kind of sprinkle them in, but I'm feeling like you guys should all know the answers to those, because we've already done those a few different times. So I'm gonna ask some general questions. These ones should be pretty easy. No real theme here. Just get your fingers ready. That's all I ask. And let me set up the YouTube chat, because I said I would use that. Let me make sure I got something here for that. Hold on. Let me see. Okay. All right. There we go. All right. Let me set this up so I can see the chat. That way, there are no complainers about who answered what first. Para, got you, Para. Don't worry about it. Got you, Para Marv. Okay. All right. So we're going to try it like this. Remember, I'm multitasking right now. I'm multitasking. Okay. All right. First question. Question number 1. What is the largest planet in our solar system? What is the largest planet in our solar system? Yep. Okay. We're looking good. Simon the Likeable got it. It is big old Jupiter, which is just, I forgot how many times larger than Earth, but it's a lot. It's like 1,000 times larger, something crazy when you think of the scale, because Earth is huge, but Jupiter is huger by many magnitudes. But the answer is Jupiter. Let me go ahead and tag that for Simon the Likeable. And okay, so we'll get into the next question here. Which, I guess, and let me preface. So I will accept, when it comes down to like names of people, we'll take the last name, unless it's something, if it's obvious who it is, you can do the last name and that'll be fine. So this question kind of pertains to that. So which famous scientist developed the theory of general relativity? What scientist developed the theory of general relativity? There we go. There we go. And it appears, according to YouTube chat, let me be clear, according to YouTube chat, Paramarv has the answer correctly, the first one. It's going to be Einstein. Oh, Alberto Einstein. Okay. All right. Okay. Said tomorrow. Jimmy Neutron. All right. Let's go ahead and get into the next question here. In what year did the Titanic sink? In what year did the Titanic sink? What year did the Titanic sink? Oh, a lot of different years here, but it appears that Maggie M10 came with the correct response in 1912. That's what, 111 years ago? Wow, that's crazy, right? It's a long time. Okay. All you Aussies out there, I'm hoping the Aussie gets this one right. What is the capital city of Australia? Yikes. Okay, so Simon, are you from Australia? Let me just ask you first. Are you from Australia? Because it appears Simon is the first one. So I'm hoping Simon is from Australia, because if he isn't, then that means my Aussies let me down. Simon Likeable got it, Canberra. So, okay. All right, got you. Good. Okay. All right, you're representing. All right. Next question. Which planet is known as the red planet? Which planet is known as the red planet? There we go. Mars. It is Mars, known as the red planet. The place where I think we probably came from. I think we may have come from that planet originally, truthfully. Just a theory, doesn't have to be true. But I think when those astronauts touch down there and they get to digging, they're going to uncover some fossils. We may not be here to see it, but mark my words. But it is Mars. Mars is the red planet, Paramar. Way to go. All right. So, next question. Who wrote the play Romeo and Juliet? Who wrote the play Romeo and Juliet? Yeah, I would, Para, but man, you were just so... Man, your fingers, man. On this one, I got to give this one to Neil Wharton. It is Shakespeare. Not Spakespeare, but it is Shakespeare. Neil Wharton. All right. Next question. What is the... Okay, so on the periodic table of elements, what is the symbol of gold? On the periodic table of elements, what is the symbol of gold? All right, Simon says, Simon the Likeable says, AU. It is AU, the symbol for gold, periodic table of elements. Awesome stuff. OBK, let's see, what do we got? So, okay, in which country did the Olympic Games originate? Which country did the Olympic Games originate? Oh, Simon the Likeable's running away with it. It is definitely Greece. Simon Likeable answered twice. He said Peru, then Greece. You must be using voice to text, man. That's pretty fast, Simon Likeable. He said Peru, Greece. They both went in before anybody else answered. That's quick, man. You got the fastest fingers in the world, or you sir, are using voice to text. All right. What is the largest mammal in the world? Hey, Van Gogh, love you, love. The largest mammal in the world. Susie B, come on, I want to give it to you, but you gotta be so many different kinds of whales. It is a blue whale. Oh man, Maggie, it's not looking good. Bluey hell, I don't know what that is. I gotta give it to Neil Warden, blue whale. Blue whale, Neil Warden. All right. Who painted the Mona Lisa? Who painted the world famous Mona Lisa? Who painted the world famous Mona Lisa? Okay, man. Simon is going crazy. Leonardo da Vinci. It is Leonardo da Vinci. All right. What is the currency of Japan? What is Japan's currency called? What is the currency of Japan? No, you didn't have to say the whole name, DB. Could have done it first. Simon answer first overall. Okay, let's see. Okay, looks like Paramorph with the yen. It's the yen. It is the yen. All right, when I run out of these, we'll probably jump into some of the cryptid ones. So if you remember the cryptid, you have a great memory, or you retain the the knowledge from the last ones, you'll probably get some of those. I'm just going to pull those out the hat. Okay. Which element has the chemical symbol of O on the periodic table of elements? Which element has the chemical symbol of O? Yep, paramorph is oxygen. It's the thing we breathe to survive. It's what makes this planet livable for us. One of the things is good old oxygen. If we didn't have this, we wouldn't be here. So paramorph with oxygen. Awesome. Okay. Ooh, for the math heads, what is the smallest prime number? What is the smallest prime number? What is the smallest prime number? Yep, there we go. Dead fish cheese spread. It is 2. It is 2. Go ahead and remove that. All right. Okay. Who is the author of the Harry Potter series? Who is the author of the Harry Potter series? I've never seen any of the Harry Potters, by the way. But who is the author of the Harry Potter series? Maggie M10. J.K. Rowling. It is J.K. Rowling. Or Rowling, however you pronounce it. That is the answer. Score 1 for Maggie M10. Okay. Which famous physicist formulated the 3 laws of motion? Which famous physicist formulated the 3 laws of motion? All right. Looks like paramorph. It was Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton. All right. For all our brothers and sisters up north, what is the capital city of Canada? Capital city of Canada. Where's our Canadians? Make Dave Scott proud. What is the capital city of Canada? And our guest, Victor. Oh. Haha, here we go. Finally see it. Everybody just naming the ones they can remember. But tickle. Got it. It is Ottawa. You don't think of Ottawa, right? You don't hear Ottawa too much. Ottawa is where you send in a lot of mail-in subscription stuff when you see. I know I'm not the only one that's seen that on TV. Send it off to Ottawa. So, okay. Let me make sure that one was saved too. Yeah, we got that. Okay, Ottawa. We got that. All right. In what year did the United States of America declare its independence? What year? For all my Americans, all my fellow Americans. DB nobody. 1776. And I'm going to stop right there. Well, I'm not going to stop, but I'm just going to pause right there real quick because I just want to point something out. The answer is 1776. If you think about that, the math says that is 247 years ago. So the United States has only declared its independence 247 years ago, yet we've been holding this UFO, or they've been holding this UFO secret for 80 to 90 years. That's over a third of the time that we've been an established country, that we've declared our independence. Over a third of that time, at the least, maybe longer, they've been concealing this UFO secret. Think about that. Think about that. Thank you, DB Nobody. All right. Next question. What is the largest ocean on Earth? Where all the USOs hide. What is the largest ocean on Earth? Yep, Simon Likeable got it right. Pacific Ocean. And we know that's where these things are hiding. We know that's where they're hiding. Simon Likeable, Pacific Ocean, right here where I'm at. Literally less than 50 miles from where I'm at, maybe a little more. Pacific Ocean. And there are UFOs, USOs in the water for sure. Which is crazy to think about, but true. All right. Let's see. Who wrote the play Hamlet? Who wrote the play Hamlet? If you've ever had to do Hamlet in school, like I did, and Macbeth. Yes, Lex Diaz. Coming with the right answer. There we go. It is, according to the YouTube chat, Lex Diaz came before Van Gogh. But according to this chat, which is the wrong chat, Van Gogh came before Lex Diaz. So I see the discrepancy. Paramore, I just want you to know I found where that discrepancy is. A perfect example. So it is definitely Lex Diaz with the right answer, even though StreamYard shows differently. Lex Diaz for the win. It is Shakespeare. All right. What is the powerhouse of a cell? The powerhouse of a cell. Yep, live chat. What is the powerhouse of a cell? Well, we're going down the right path right now. Oh, whoa. Van Gogh knocking everybody upside the head with the right answer. Here we go. Mitochondria. That is awesome, Van Gogh. Way to pull that one out right there. That was an awesome one right there. All right, now I'm going to grab a couple cryptid ones since we're running into the last 10 minutes. I need to tally this up here. All right, what does the acronym UFO stand for? What is the acronym UFO stand for? UFO is a what? Ah. Okay. Definitely not an unidentified flying octopus back in 10. Susie B, not an unidentified flying saucer, UFO. So this DB nobody, we got it first. Unidentified flying object would be the O. That would be the O. All right, DB nobody. All right, we'll go a few more minutes here, a couple more minutes. I gotta tally up and get the commercial going here. All right. So okay. In 1980, a series of UFO sightings and encounters occurred in which forest in Suffolk, England? 1980. A series of UFO sightings and encounters occurred in which forest in Suffolk, England? All right. Okay, let me stop the press here. Okay, looks like, let me just make sure. Okay, Paramar got the right answer. Rendlesham. All right. So, Paramar got the right answer, but Lavera Lucchini, are you saying it's your birthday tonight? Saying it's my birthday, Rob G? You confirm? Today's your birthday? All right. We'll wait for that. No, not your birthday. Okay. I want to make sure because I was going to have to stop the music and sing. So, okay. Let me grab this is the final question here. Let me get one. Okay, what organization is dedicated to the scientific study of unidentified flying objects and is often cited in UFO research, and they accept UFO reports from the public? All right. Dead fish cheese spread. It is none other than MUFON. All right, well, this is awesome. So we'll go ahead and pause the trivia right there. Let's go ahead and tally up the votes or tally up the answers here. See who walks home with the prize today. All right, let me go back, and it looks like we got Paramore has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Paramar was 7? Whoa, okay. Paramar has 7. Yikes. I think that might be it, buddy. Hold on. Paramar has 7. All right, we got let's see who we got. Captain Jones. No, actually, he had 6. The other one was a question I say from earlier. Let me move that out the way. Back that out. 6. All right, Simon the Likeable had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, We got a tie. Maggie M10 had 1, 2. Simon, let's see, Paramore. Neil Warden had 1, 2. Okay. Dead Fish Cheese Spread at 1, 2. Maggie, we did Maggie Tickled had 1. DB Nobody had 1, 2. Lex Diaz had 1. Van Gold had 1. So we have a face-off between Paramore and Simon the Likeable. So only those two answer. The first two with the right answer. There we go. Pick a good one. Okay, here we go. Wait, I want to make sure it's good. Okay. What is the name of the U.S. government project that investigated UFOs from 1952 to 1969? (1952 to 1969). All right, there we go. Paramarv takes it. It is Blue Book, Project Blue Book. Paramarv is the winner tonight. Go ahead and give Paramarv props. Shower Paramarv with accolades and all sorts of wonderful things for taking home tonight's trivia. There you go. You'll forever be in the comment section with fire emojis, and you'll have bragging rights for all here to eternity, because it'll be posted here in this awesome show, this awesome episode from tonight. So it'll go down in history. Anyone who watches this show will see that Paramar was the winner of the trivia tonight. And I think that's an awesome thing. So what I want to do, we have a few minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and cut down the music so we can do our promotional thing real quick here. We want to make sure that you guys go get some of our swag at the Spaced Out Radio store. So let's go ahead and take a look at that commercial here. Here we go.
We do not have ugly swag. We have Spaced Out Radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com. Shop there today and make yourself look good. Of your woo, it's time to make a commitment to the 3rd annual SOR Fan Party. This time, we're heading to Reno, Nevada and the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort, May 10th through 12th, 2024. Tickets are $60 or $100 for VIP. With that, you get a free radio show. You get to hang out with celebrity guests from Spaced Out Radio, including our team, who are coming to hang out with you. You get to meet the entire team, like Science Bob, Merle, Melinda Leslie, Geraldina Roscoe, and more. It's a weekend packed with adventure, and we want you there. After all, we're doing this for you. Find out more and get your tickets at info@spacedoutradio.com and book your hotels today at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort in Reno, Nevada. Come join us for the SOR Fan Party, May 10th through 12th, 2024.
All right. So definitely great show tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here. And as we prepare to bring the show to a close, I definitely want to thank all of our super chatters. We had Miss Catherine Jones showing love tonight. Thank you for the support of Spaced Out Radio. We do appreciate it. And then we had FaZe Will also showing love and do appreciate you. And yeah, so anybody who, I know we have some new people here who came with on behalf of Victor. Victor's part of the family now. I mean, we'd love to have you guys back as well. So please consider hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, and coming back and checking us out. We do what we're doing here on the weekends every Saturday and Sunday, starting at 8 p.m. Pacific time. And the show is always a solid show. Like I said today, shout out to Travis Mustos. Hope he gets better. You guys send him his well wishes, and Hopefully we'll see him back on the next episode. But with that being said, I just want to say again, because we won't probably talk here for another, or at least on after hours. Next week, we'll have the pre-recorded episodes, which is dipping into the vault, but they will be hosted episodes. So I'll still have the intros and everything that take place. And the live chat will be open. So it'll be business as usual on the live chat end. So definitely make sure that you are here next Saturday and Sunday, and we're gonna have a couple great epic episodes. Then on Monday, which is Christmas here, Dave Scott will be taking that day off, so we will have an archive playing on that day as well, and then we're back to live right after that. So just make sure you're here every day of the week, and we're gonna go ahead and make sure that we bring you some viewing pleasure. So with that being said, to all my space travelers out there, since we're already all space travelers, consider taking the next step and joining the club. That's right. You can join our SOR Space Travelers Club for as little as $5 per month by joining our Patreon. We appreciate your support. So all our viewers across the globe, thank you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, you ask? We own the night. See you guys in a little bit. See you at the after show if you're there. Take care.